I want to show you a billboard because I think some of you are going to get a kick out of this. I know I most certainly did. This was created by Oath Keepers in response to an article by a Leavenworth instructor which paints the Tea Party movement as a future military opponent of the U.S. military. I mean, this billboard will appear right outside the main gate of Fort Leavenworth, where Colonel Redcoat Benson will undoubtedly get an up-close and personal look at the message every day as he drives into work. Isn't that nice? And we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, Alex Jones is going to talk to Stuart Rhodes about that billboard and also talk about the latest on the Brandon Raub story. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with Alex Jones and Stuart Rhodes right after this.
And we are back. Thank you for joining us on this Friday edition of InfoWars Nightly News. This next story is so huge, it blows my mind. We have confirmed, not just with the Marine in Virginia, Brandon Raub, who was picked up last week for Facebook posts by himself, his brother, and others, where they quoted some lyrics about sharpening an axe and said the Federal Reserve was private and talked about my radio show. He's a listener. I've now talked to his lawyer and the family. He's coming on next week. He disappeared into the psychiatric facility, and the psychiatrist came to him and said, I'm going to brainwash you. I'm going to force drug you. You're crazy. The Federal Reserve basically is it private. Now we've confirmed all over the country, even radio talk show hosts that are veterans that say things like the hammer's coming down, we need to all buy guns to protect ourselves. They come, they involuntarily commit them, the police do, with the FBI, and tell them, we're not going to ever let you out of here until you sign an agreement that you're mentally ill and that you're going to go to classes and turn your guns in. So it's a way to extrajudicially strip veterans and basically turn them into what's psychological felons. Now, we have constitutional lawyer Stuart Rhodes, who's going to be one of the keynote speakers tomorrow at Paul Fest, where thousands have already gathered as it kicks off there at the RNC event in Tampa. They're having their own alternate event to try to get the Republicans to actually look at the Bill of Rights and Constitution and rediscover it. This is so huge because we're getting calls from all over the country and confirming. And we were already getting these, but now since this story went nationwide, and one of the biggest stories in the country, Brandon Raub's story, we are now confirming. In the case of Homeland Security.us, the Northeast Intelligence Group, we interviewed them a few days ago with a radio talk show host who barely criticized things, didn't call for any violence. They grabbed him, stripped his Second Amendment. This is so scary. They say the veterans are the #1 terror threat. They say they're coming after them. They're training the National Guard that veterans are evil. So they're training them that they're going to be evil when they're out of the military. This is unprecedented because the globalists know it's the military that is going to stand in the way of a globalist takeover. And they want to be able to go after the military that follow their oath. So this shows us we're very late in the game here. We're winning the info war on many fronts, but the globalists have seized control of the federal government. They're moving forward. You had a state county judge, that's over the county commissioners in Lubbock, come out and say, I need more deputies to deal with the handover of our sovereignty and civil unrest to this New World Order takeover. Will he be put in a mental institution? Because they're on C-SPAN. They're on CNBC. They're in the newspaper saying, world government's here run by foreign banks. We've played those clips over and over again. So our military's been told it's under UN NATO command in Congress. Obama says we're part of a global government. You didn't build your own company. And then when we say we don't want to be under that, this is illegitimate, this is sedition by the executive, these are collaborators like Vichy French, they say, we're going to arrest you like the old Soviet Union. This is incredible. And here to talk about that and more, we have the military coming out with new papers saying the Tea Party is the terrorist and is going to link up with Al-Qaeda. Stuart Rhodes is fighting back against that. The founder of Oath Keepers joins us to talk about all of this. But Stuart, I mean, am I wrong to say this is probably one of the biggest stories we've ever seen, that there is a dragnet? And with all of your military veteran sources, are you too getting the reports and confirmed reports that veterans are being scooped up by the thought police now here in America?
Well, I think that is happening, but I think the case of Brandon Raub in particular is special because it's the one where it was only focused on his free speech on Facebook. The government consistently said that the only reason they detained him for a psych eval was what he had posted on Facebook. So that is a bit different than guys going in for PTSD diagnosis, etc., and then being put into the system. This is the first one where they've reached out, where a guy is not in the VA hospital getting looked at on his own. They reached out and grabbed him because they didn't like his Facebook posting. That is crossing a huge line. And what this really is a direct parallel to what was done in the Soviet Union. In the Soviet Union, they would take you and haul you off to their little psych hospitals. I believe they were called Pashushkas, and psychiatric prisons. And that was just their way of circumventing their due process. And so the U.S. government now is, just as we've known for years, is following directly in the same path of Joseph Stalin. And they're beginning to, that's their playbook. And they've got the NDAA, that's military detention that circumvents the Bill of Rights. But now they got one extra way of doing it, and that's through the mental health system. And I knew this was coming back in 2010. Back in 2010, you'll remember, DHS has a working panel for countering violent extremism, and they've got Cohen, the CEO of Southern Poverty Law Center, sitting on it. And one of the recommendations out of that panel for DHS was to use the local social services, including mental health services, to combat, quote-unquote, violent extremism. And so this is exactly what SPLC wants to see happening. But these the police in Virginia that have done this to this veteran Marine, are playing with fire. And if the federal government continues to go down this road, they're playing with fire. This is not Russia. But Americans aren't going to sit quietly and cower in fear while their brother veterans are being snapped up. If they do this this begins to see a pattern and practice, this being done, they're going to fight back. And so they are playing with fire.
Well, maybe that's what they want. I mean, every indicator I see is they're preparing. The National Guard magazine says, meet your enemy, it's you. The new white al-Qaeda, we're being told, is everywhere. I knew this was going on 5, 6, 7 years ago behind the scenes. Now they're bringing it out in the open, and,
right.
and I think really trying to start a shooting war, trying to push us into it, because they know in the info war, we are absolutely accelerating right now towards light speed. They can see the trajectory of the power of the liberty movement and the information we have that's pure Americana, Constitution, what everybody's starving for in the face of this naked tyranny. And now they just admit, we're listening to you without warrants. Yeah, we got the TSA at checkpoints and political events in high schools. We're going to stick our hands down your wife's pants. We're going to make Miss USA cry. We're going to, taser you for no reason. We're going to come in the schools and forcibly inoculate your kids in California without consent. I mean, just the level of crime. They're taking the gloves off because they don't care if a civil war starts and the cops and military get killed in it. In fact, they like that because that's going to chew things up and create the crisis they want, where they openly say in all these documents now they'll bring in mercenaries after we've worn each other out. The good news is I'm talking to police mainly, and they have never woken up bigger than this. Everything I told them 17 years ago, everything you've told them in the last decade, Ron Paul talked about, it's all coming true. And so I just see this as a collision course. I mean, where do you see this going if they start trying to do this? Because, yeah, like you said, veterans in the future, when they come to take them away to a mental institution, they're just going to start resisting, and then the Civil War kicks off.
Well, I see it, as we've talked before, when we had that big, long talk about the NDAA. We're on a short track to having to fight a revolution, and I would prefer that we had more time, because given enough time, we will win, because we are winning the information war. And hats off to you and others like you. You've been a big part of that. But while we would win with enough time, I feel like they understand that too, and so they're going to try to shut it down. They're going to either do an economic collapse, trigger an economic collapse, or some other pretext to clamp down on us, or, like you said, keep pushing at us until we fight back. So that might be part of their game plan. But it might be something we can't avoid. When they come for you, you must resist. Solzhenitsyn was correct. You reach a certain point where you reach the Solzhenitsyn moment where you need to resist. And like he said, we did not love freedom enough. Well, there is a significant minority in this country, the liberty movement, that does love freedom enough, and they're going to fight back. I've talked to veterans across the country after the NDA was passed, and they all said the same exact thing. They said when they take another brother veteran under the NDAA and the military detention, that's it. It's on. They're not going to wait for them to come for them. They're going to go active. They're going to go after the bad guys. And I think that this psychiatric detention is the same. What's the difference between this or calling you an enemy combatant? It's the same kind of thing. They label you as something that strips away your Bill of Rights protections, and they just come get you. I think veterans will have the exact same reaction.
Sure, I had the head of the Rutherford Institute, a constitutional lawyer like yourself, on yesterday and today, and we've also talked to the Raub family now. When he's ready to talk, he's resting. He's going to come on next week, Brandon Raub. But talking to the head of the Rutherford Institute, who helped go before the judge and get him out of there because there's still a little bit of the Constitution left. But this is the case we knew about. There's so many others where they've just taken their guns and, said they're mentally ill for no reason because of, I'm talking about talk show hosts, bro. We're confirming this is going on everywhere right now. My point is, the psychiatrist terrorized him, trying to get him to get angry, and would come in and say, we're going to brainwash you. We're going to force drug you, trying to get him to respond. And he was smart enough to keep cool. But, I mean, these are really creepy, evil people that the government has gotten in these facilities. And I was talking to the lawyer. He talked to a local newspaper reporter. He said in the last month in that county in Virginia, 20 people have been picked up, quite a few of them veterans, the same way. It was full of people. So they're doing this now. I mean, they're watching what you say and going, oh, you don't like the government, we're going to pick you up. And then you're in a room with some commissar creep who tries to terrorize you. I mean, I guess we know their tactics now, but my God, these are evil people.
Well, we need to stand up hard. I talked to John Whitehead the other day on the phone, and props to him. It was really awesome that he stood up for Brandon. And I talked to him about this and said, look, this is like the camel's nose sliding under the tent. We got to stomp hard on it. And he said, well, actually, the whole camel's already inside the tent. We got to shove it back out. And so we're going to work with them as close as we possibly can. And it looks like this is just the beginning of this fight. And so we were going to do a mass rally this next weekend to demand that they either charge or release him. But now we kind of called that off because he's been released. But maybe we should just go ahead and do one anyway. Go there and protest against this pattern. So I'm going to have to find out more the details of what's going on there. But if it proves out that there's actually the same kind of thing happening to other veterans in Virginia, then we got to stomp on it. We got to stomp on it hard. Oh, yeah. Let me draw your attention to the article by Douglas J. Hagman. And I interviewed the talk show host. He's got a popular show. And he just said, quote, the hammer's coming down. It's time to buy more guns. He's on Blog Talk Radio. And they came and did the same thing to him. And that was in Pennsylvania. Is that right? Yeah. Yeah. And he's a vet also. Is that correct? Yes. Yes. Right. Well, it is coming down. So, guys, you need to just realize that we might be in that Solzhenitsyn moment real soon. And so, that's why we're trying to amp up as fast as we possibly can. We've got a big billboard campaign directly to the troops outside of military bases. Yeah, let's stop there. In the time we've got, let's review, since you were on a few months ago, the waterfront of what's going on here. Public Army documents, they admit are real for re-education camps. That's it. You arrest everybody involved right there. That's sedition against the Republic. You're a constitutional lawyer. What is it, Yale? Correct me if I'm wrong. But I mean, that's just flat out sedition. Re-education camps, Red Dawn. Okay, boom. Gun confiscation in the public manuals. These are public. Army.mil now. I mean, all of it is a confession of illegitimacy. The military grassroots knows this. Preparations for collapse. Everything we've been warning of from our sources is now out in the open. I'm getting chills. I mean, I'll just say that. I'm getting chills. Like you said, I used to get chills once a month, then once a week, then once a day, now every 5 minutes. I mean, it's all building towards this moment. And I want to avert and back them off because we need more time. But like you said, Patrick Henry said, well, they come. I mean, the war's already begun. I hope we haven't reached that moment yet because, like you said, they want us to get it going now because we are absolutely ripping their arms out of their sockets in the info war. That's why everyone listening and watching has got to get savage in the info war now. Use the web while we've still got it. They've got the censorship coming in that even CNET News says is Russian style with the cybersecurity. They've got totally, I mean, it's all there. There's no doubt. But, you have these county judges coming out saying they're awake now. I mean, it's happening. I think the globalists are miscalculating, Stuart. But I mean, I'm ranting there. Let's go over this whole constellation of news. What does this signify? Well, I mean, it's that closing window. It's a narrowly closing window for us to. What we're really doing, Alex, is right now, between now and when it kicks off, we are shaping the future battle space. I don't think we're going to get out of this without a fight. I think we need to be honest with ourselves and recognize what's coming. If you've seen the Gray State trailer, it's pretty much that. That's what's coming down the road. But what we do between now and then can tip the balance. That's why I believe, we should really put our focus on getting to the guys with the guns as much as possible. And we talked to 4 Marines who served with Brandon Raub. And I'll give you guys that clip, and if you want to get them on, I can give you their contact info. It was amazing. It gave me such hope to talk to these squared away young Marines who are stand-up Americans. And so that's what's really going to give the New World Order folks and the elites fits, is there are good squared away guys within their own ranks who are not going to have any of it. And they're gonna fight with us if they have to. So we're still hoping for a 1989 East Germany style stand down. That's my goal. It's a peaceful stand down. But I'll tell you what, folks, if we don't attain that, then it's going to be a fight, and it's going to be a fight within the military too. But it's not going to be monolithic, black boot military guys following orders. It's going to be an internal civil war within the military as well.
And let's be clear. Let's be clear. Everything is set up for a domestic takeover by foreign banks that brag they've captured us. It's important to point out, I like the parallels of people think the French just lost to the Germans in 2 weeks. 70+% of their military was Vichy. They had signed on secretly with the Nazis who had infiltrated. The French military stood down, mainly the British troops that were in France fought a small rear guard, and then, of course, had that big evacuation at the sea. What was it, Dunkirk? I'm going from memory. But the point is that the Vichy were collaborators. And I want to make it clear here, from my historical analysis, the globalists, all their minions, all the idiots they've hired, most of them are just morons that think they're the good guys. They're Vichys. And they are collaborators with pure evil New World Order banker takeover. And now it's all out in the open. So, folks, do not be collaborators with the New World Order. Do you agree with that parallel, and what do you have to say?
No, you're right. Like Colonel Benson there at Leavenworth, he's a good example. I like to call them Tories, but same thing. Tories, Vichy, take your pick. They're the enemy within the gates, and this is a lesson from ancient Greece through Rome and on down through history. Is most societies fall because traitors within open the gates for the enemy, and that's what's happening here. So you're right; it's a good parallel.
Talk about the colonel, the one that says the Tea Party is going to be an insurrection. They predict that will merge and link up with Al Qaeda. That is so asinine.
Oh, it is, and I think it's a gift for us. This is Colonel Kevin Benson at Fort Leavenworth, and he's no small fry, as Mike Vanderbilt over at 60th Street Irregulars pointed out. This is a guy who is pretty well in the inner circle among the academia within the military for teaching what they consider to be, future war. What he's trying to do is shape the future battle space, and he's trying to shape it to condition all these officers to think that their future military opponent is the Tea Party in the United States, and get them ready to shoot them. So that's why we're going to go right outside of Leavenworth. Our first billboard is going to be right outside the main gates where this guy works, and it's going to say, Colonel Redcoat Benson, the Tea Party is not the enemy, and soldiers, honor your oath, refuse to fire on Americans, taking the message right straight to his doorstep to counter him. So it's an info war, and rather than going hat in hand to the Department of Defense and asking them to please teach the Constitution and teach the truth, we're going to go right around them and go straight to the troops. And
everybody at that base is going to be talking about that, and it's going to show that the majority are patriots, and that this guy is I guess, Benedict Arnold in waiting. Because for people to understand, folks, the Tea Party started by Ron Paul type folks, myself and others, that got taken over by the Republicans. But the new Tea Party has got some good people with good ideas overall, but they're super Islamophobic. They're like glass parking lot, the Arabs. And to say that they're going to link up, and they predict what North Carolina, they're predicting this, with Al-Qaeda, it shows the battle space. They're saying, okay, Al-Qaeda was a threat, now it's domestic, the Tea Party's Al-Qaeda. And people are like, well, that's idiotic. Well, the general public that doesn't even read a newspaper, they'll believe whatever they're told. And so-called liberals, the half the public that's on government dole, they'll want to believe it. Look, if they get promised a welfare check, they'll call for Stuart Rhodes to be executed. And these people, I've had them. I've had local operatives in the Democratic Party say they hope yeah, we are going to take over and kill you. These are authoritarian scum. And they've hijacked our damn country with a bunch of foreign banks, and it's important to call them out now before the hammer drops. You are traitors, you are scum, you are filth, you are the enemy, and we are not with Al-Qaeda, you damn liars.
Yeah, like I said, I think it's a gift. I think it's wonderful to have them come right out and name the Tea Party as the enemy, because it wakes the Tea Party up. And like you said, these are people who, during the Bush years, were more than happy to sacrifice the Bill of Rights on the altar of security, and they were only looking outside, looking at the Islamic threat. Well, now all of that has been turned on them. And so this wakes them up. It only helps. Just as all of the long train of abuses leading up to the American Revolution only pushed more Americans to the side of the Patriots, same thing's happening now. So the more they attack veterans, the more they attack the Tea Party, I love it. Keep it on. Bring it on. And they want to bring foreign troops in the United States, that'd even be better. That'd be the best.
We're going to instantly win once they do that. But yeah. I've studied it. The plan is get us in a civil war, provocateur stuff, demonize liberty movements ahead of time to control the battle space, as you said. They'll stage the first events with like really unsavory white supremacist types, you know, toothless people. They'll do that. Then they'll start attacking us. Then people will resist. It'll decimate the military and police forces that actually do it. Then they're planning to bring in the I-4. That's the public plan, as you know, to bring in foreign troops. This is not just some theory. And the day that happens, Katie barred the door when they're on the news going, helpers are here to help secure things. I mean, I mean, come on. Listen, you look at Janet Napolitano and these globalists. They're smart at certain levels. They hired Primakov. They hired Wolf from the old Soviet Union to bring him over here to help set this up 10 years ago. But Janet is, you know, in all these suits, reportedly, and I believe it, running around with all her lesbian buddies on crazy power trips. These criminals are mentally ill. And there's so many yes men around them, they really think they're going to win this fight. And it's not just me wanting to believe this. I know, I can see out into the future, historically, they're going to lose, Stuart.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have the same hubris that the British officer corps had regarding our forefathers. They believed they would not fight back. They didn't dare fire on British troops. And they got their butts handed to them in Lexington and Concord all the way back to Boston. So this will be a repeat of that. And so that's what we have to count on. We have to count on their own arrogance and hubris. So I hope they bring in foreign troops, just like the Crown brought in the Hessians. And that's what really tipped the scales on the side of the Patriots, was when they did that.
And, of course, a lot of the German Hessians actually said, hey, I want to be free, and ran off.
Right.
That was one of the biggest injections of German immigrants to this country. Now, Stuart, get more into this billboard campaign.
Well, we really feel like we're running out of time, and so we want to take the message straight to the troops en masse. And so we're going to put the first one's going to be outside of Leavenworth, and we got Fort Riley there where the big red one's at. The one out there, and then we're going to go to Camp Lejeune and Fort Stewart, Georgia, the next two, to the combat arms. And the message there, like for Camp Lejeune, it's going to be Iwo Jima flag raising, and it says, they honored their oath, honor yours. You know, do not refuse to detain American citizens, and NDAA is treason, to teach them about the NDAA. So that's
absolutely,
our main focus.
Absolutely, because when they do an NDAA, when they do this stuff, it just confirms everything we've said. It's a confession.
Well, you know what's really interesting is that we've been some of the most strident speeches I've ever given, like that interview I did with you on NDAA. I mean, I said some pretty hardcore stuff, and yet the SPLC will not. They're silent on that. They have not yet drug out anything I've said about NDAA, no matter how firebrand it is. And the reason why is because they don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole, because it's happening. That's the real, you know, it's right there in black letter law. We can point right to it. And so they don't want to talk about it. So that's why this billboard campaign is going to focus on the NDAA and teach the troops.
What are the people aiding, people knowingly aiding this globalist takeover? I mean, I guess treason is taking up arms, but this is political treason. I guess it's sedition. Is it espionage?
Well, I call it treason because treason is making war against the United States. And when they authorize the use of military force, military detention, under military trial under the laws of war, what is that except making war against you? So that is treason.
Now, Stuart, continuing here, let's talk about the mood of the military, because you've got your pulse on it like probably nobody else. I'm seeing every time we talk, it's an accelerated awakening, but now it's at hyper warp. What are you saying?
Oh, exactly. And like I said, talking to those 4 Marines the other night gave me chills. These are guys, they're just like Brandon Raub. They're every bit as awake and aware as he is, and they're standing up for him, and they admire him. They see him as a leader, and I think they're right. And so I think there is a mass quickening going on inside the military. And I think it's too late. I think it's too late for the bad guys. There's already enough truth that's out there, and all we want to do now is amplify it. We want more. We want to create more Brandon Raubs in the U.S. military, more woken up, stand-up Marines. They got courage. These are guys who have been in combat. They've seen it. These are not guys who are going to roll over and just do what they're told. They've got it. They got the cojones to stand up. And so what we just need to do is make more of them in the military. Go wake them up.
Expanding on that, I'm really worried about false flags. Give us your historical concern on that, because I think that's the one ace in the hole the enemy has. So we've got to control the battle space and expose that.
Well, absolutely. I mean, as we both know, that's how the Nazis did it. They did the Reichstag fire, and right after that fire, there was a Reichstag fire decree, and then the Enabling Act 1 month later, and that's exactly how the Nazis. And then
Glywitz to start the war with Poland.
Sure, exactly. And so, you know, but that's the playbook. And what's kind of nice, though, is, and this is why I think they're so afraid of the whole truther movement, is because, you know, whether a person believes 9/11 was inside job or not, the historic record of false flags, including Operation Northwoods here in the United States, cannot be argued with. You know, when someone starts to talk to me about, oh, no president of the United States would ever do that, I point to Operation Northwoods, where you had the Joint Chiefs of Staff proposing this to Kennedy, and thankfully Kennedy had enough of a backbone to say no. But then look what happened to him. So it can show, look, guys, this has happened throughout history. Don't be surprised to see it again. And I hear that more and more among people. They're like, I'm concerned that Obama's going to pull something, an October surprise. You hear that more and more, even among the neocons, even among the more traditional Republicans who don't believe in the 9/11 conspiracy. They still think that Obama's capable of doing this. And I think it's kind of good that that's out there. The whole meme of the false flag is out there. It helps to stop it from happening.
Well said. Speaking of an awakening, what do you make of this county judge out in Lubbock saying, we know there's a global government takeover and we're getting the police ready to resist it? I would only say to him, yeah, but you're talking about UN tanks. It'll be our military under the global government saying that's the authority. That's what's scary. The first wave is going to be our own military.
Well, I think it's really good to see judges like that, and just like the judge in Virginia who stood up and said this is ridiculous and set Brandon free. I think it's a really great indicator that there's still some who take their oath seriously, and it's good to see them waking up to this possibility. So I think we need to have a dialogue about this, about, well, wait a minute, what would it be like? It wouldn't be, like you said, you know, initially a bunch of blue helmets. It'd be a bunch of brainwashed military officers giving their men orders. So the big question is will their men comply? And I think the military officers, the perfume princesses, as hackers used to call them, I think a lot of them are going to be very sadly surprised when their NCOs and their gunnery sergeants tell them to go pound sand.
Well, you know, they've been preparing for this war forever. I confirmed 15 years ago, then again 10 years ago, then again 3 years ago. I've confirmed this dozens of times with guests on the radio over and over again, Stuart, that they've been training in Austin and San Antonio, but I mean, that's usually because I've been so big in Texas, but now I've seen all over the country, and people can call into you and tell you about this, that going back forever, they've been training the ROTC at college, they're preparing to be the officers, for people that haven't been in the military who don't understand that out there, to fight the militia and veterans, and they're training explorer scouts. You know, the New York Times said how great it is to, quote, take on disgruntled veterans. So the entire architecture has shifted domestically towards this Night of the Long Knives culling of veterans and military that don't submit. You know, kind of a reverse Operation Valkyrie against people that would resist them. Because the globalists know where the threat's going to be. They understand that. They're not worried about people watching TV and sucking their thumbs, or tough guys and all this stuff that, you know, love the New World Order. They're worried about people that understand there's been a takeover. And so think about how long-term that's been, and watching those ROTC officers in colleges to see who would do this. They've been drilling their whole lives. They've been drilling for a decade, for 15 years, their whole adult lives, to take us on. I mean, that is an evidence of the total conspiracy against America and the Republic. This internal infiltration takeover. We're not just saying this is a foreign infiltration by banks. This is. I mean, this is an enemy takeover. I mean, it's incredible. What's your take on that?
Well, they're telling you exactly. Benson, in his article, is just icing on the cake. Now it's just much more overt, but they're telling you exactly who's going to be their future enemy. And in many ways, they're correct, because who else is going to resist them? It's going to be the veterans. It's going to be the patriots. It's going to be the awakened, especially the awakened veteran is who they're worried about, and for good reason. Because, as I said from the very beginning, we are a threat to their plans. We're just not a threat to the American people. I think their propaganda war against us among the population is not going to work. And I also think that even if they brainwash all of these, perfume princess officers, that's not going to help them either. Because you can ask any Vietnam veteran what happens to an officer who betrays his men. And that's all I'm going to say about that. But these officers need to wake up and smell the coffee that they're NCOs, they're gunnery sergeants. Those are the real backbone of the U.S. military. Those are the combat leaders for the troops. And there are some good officers, but for the ones who have sold themselves down the river and sold themselves out to the devil, like Colonel Benson there, they don't know what they're messing with, because the troops are not going to follow their orders. There's going to be a serious dissension in the ranks, and they can give all the orders they want to, but let's see them enforce them.
Well, I learned, again, 15 years ago when my first film came out, America Destroyed by Design, that Marines, is where it first started, were handing them out at bases, and then they would get in trouble and have to run for it or get extra duty. But then everybody wanted to see what was banned. And so when they say don't go to oathkeepers.org, as you know they do in the military, or don't go to Infowars.com, that has the opposite effect. They tune in, they hear common sense. I mean, it's incredible how much the military listens just to my show alone.
Yeah, it is, and that's why I think it's going to backfire on them. We were originally going to go and do base tours where we would have speeches, but we decided against that. And the reason is we don't want to have a gathering where we invite them to go to the gathering and then all the license plates get taken down. We don't want to do that. So what we're going to do instead is put billboards outside the base and then have guys, volunteers standing outside the base handing out free DVDs and flash drives and written materials, so that they can't purge people. They're not going to have a good list of who went to the meeting. So we're going to be very careful about that.
Well, I think if you present it right with just the truth straight up on the table, hey, two sides, here it is. If you just lay it out, because people always kind of, I mean, I like the fact you just lay it out. A lot of people kind of, oh, let me tell you, no. It's like, boom, we're in the right. Look at the facts. You choose a side right now. We're not playing games.
Exactly.
We don't have time. I think your earlier idea might have been good, or do both. I say, hey, step across the line like Colonel Travis. You're being told you're going to fight the Tea Party, that the foreign government and NATO orders our military around now, and it's your First Amendment right to come hear a speech. And I think you'd have so many come to it, especially if they try to stop them, that people would freak out when half the base showed up. Purge half of them. I mean, our numbers are so great, it's time to start showing them.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, we've heard from inside of the NSA. One of our guys is retired Special Forces. He's got a buddy inside the NSA who contacted him and said that they're concerned about what they call the Oath Keeper effect. And what he said is that they can't quantify it. They don't know how big it is. And so they can't game it. That's one of the things that's kind of giving them fits. And so we just don't want to help them. We don't want to help them be able to game it. We don't want to.
You don't want to give them intelligence.
Right. We don't want to help them identify, because it's kind of like an iceberg. There's that visible tip, but then there's that big mass underneath that's not quantifiable. And so there are a lot of guys who are smart enough, especially in special warfare, who've contacted us and said, look, I agree with what you guys are doing, but you won't find me on your website. I don't need to go there. I'll take care of business within my own unit. And they're just staying off the web, so they can't be tracked and they can't be purged, because a purge does happen. That's the first thing Stalin did, first thing Hitler did. You mentioned the Night of the Long Knives. That's what that was. That was a purge. That was him getting rid of the guys who were, a lot of the SSA didn't like what he was doing, because they were kind of fooled into supporting him initially, what they thought were good ends, and then he started doing stuff they didn't like, like arresting other Germans, and that's why he had to purge them. So we're really careful about that. That's why I'm leaning towards just putting out the information, giving it to everybody who goes through the gate, and if they order them not to accept it, then that's only going to backfire. Then guys are going to want to go to Oath Keepers and see what's going on.
All right, Stuart Rhodes. Look forward to your speech, seeing that online there at Paul Fest. oathkeepers.org. Amazing interview. It is a victory, though, that so quickly it made national news that from the grassroots forcing it out there that Brandon Raub had been grabbed. And the fact that, you know, the judge ruled against him. Again, we have to force all those battles. And it's people tend to think as the fight keeps going that, oh, we're being worn out. No, we're getting stronger. We need, like you said, welcome it. You know, use all of their evil against them. Don't like, oh, they're going to come get me. Step into history, realize there is no future if we don't beat these people. That's the liberating thing, is to realize, folks, these are the nastiest, sickest, control freak, anti-family, scum, devilish people you can imagine. People say, oh, we have courage to stand up against them. It's not courage. It's a default position when a bunch of foreign banks want to gut your country to stand up against them. I mean, I don't understand people that are afraid to stand up against this. This is history happening right now.
Yep. Yeah. Embrace the suck. Step up. And, you know, we're all going to die anyway. Just might as well live like men. Stand up.
All right, Stuart Rhodes, thank you so much for the time, and we'll talk to you again very soon.
All right. God bless, Alex.
All right, there he goes, ladies and gentlemen. Wow, that was a powerful interview.